Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be going over what's happening with NAR. If you don't know what NAR is, it is the National Association of Realtors, and they have been in quite a few lawsuits lately. One that closed with interesting outcomes. We now know what those are. I'll get further into that later in the video. Let's see what Barbara has to say about it.
Off in the wake of the announcement. We have Zillow off more than 10% since the settlement was announced. Redfin and Compass shares, they've also declined on that news. But Wall Street is now trying to gauge, and Americans are really trying to gauge what the settlement will mean for home buyers, what it means for some of the major players within the sector. Who better to talk to about this than Barbara Corcoran? She's joining us now at the desk, founder of the Corcoran Group. Barbara, it's great to see you.
Thank you very much.
So let's talk about this settlement. Just your initial reaction to it, the disruption. Will it cause disruption throughout the industry?
I think a lot less than people expected to, but what it is causing is total confusion. Brokers are confused, buyers and sellers are confused. I even think the people who made the amendments are confused. But they're really only basically two changes that do make a difference. Not a tremendous difference, but a clear difference. One is if you're a buyer in the market and you want to hire a broker to represent you to find you a house, it now has to be in writing exactly what they're going to do for you and exactly what each service is going to charge, okay? What they will charge you for each service. So there's clarity, and I think that's very good for the buyers that they have clarity. But it's not so good for the buyers because if the seller doesn't want to pay, like days of old, sandwich it into the commission, they have to take it out of their pocket. And buyers, I know, don't like to pay for things out of their own pocket.
I wonder too if sellers are
Okay, so buyers having to pay out of their own pocket for a broker's commission. This is weird because they already were paying for their broker's commission. It was just rolled into the loan. And what that means is the seller would technically give the buyer's agent their commission, but it was out of the proceeds that they made from selling the house, meaning that they got that money because the buyer said that they would pay for it. So the buyer gave you the money they got from the loan, and then they're going to pay it off for 30 years because, buyers don't have the most cash. And at the beginning, veterans weren't going to be able to pay buyer's agents at all. So if the seller wasn't paying, veterans basically would have to go unrepresented or only get houses where the seller's going to pay. Hopefully, most sellers will realize that they're going to lose a lot more money by not paying the buyer's broker or agent, because I know at least recently a seller wanted to not pay the buyers, and they lost around $75,000 of value on their home because no one wants to pay a few $1,000s to a buyer's agent when they also have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for their down payment and many other costs that come along with being a new homeowner. So they always paid their broker. They always did. They're just going to now have to have it labeled out and said how much they're going to pay them if the seller doesn't pay them now. Instead of it just always being the seller will use the proceeds to pay your part and it will just be rolled into your loan.
they're going to find other ways to increase fees so that it doesn't necessarily lead to, or brokers rather, are going to find a way to increase fees and commissions so there's not that big of an impact.
I think that's going to happen. I think particularly the sellers will step up to the plate because you have to remember sellers want buyers coming in. The more buyers that come in the house, the better the price they get, basically. So they're going to find a way to make good with the buyers, whether it be paying for closing costs or any myriad of things that they can do. But it will even the score out. So I don't think the ruling is a big deal, honestly. But
Does 75,000 justify not paying 15,000? I don't know. I mean, obviously that was a one-time case. Maybe they won't always happen like that. But like she said, you want to attract the most buyers. To get the most buyers, you're going to want to roll it into the loan for the buyer. Otherwise, people who are strapped on cash or for a moment veterans, but now they're allowed to pay their broker, but still, I mean, veterans aren't necessarily known to be the wealthiest people. They're probably not going to want to have to pay the buyer's commission or the buyer's agent's commission at least. That is. So hopefully sellers again just keep it how it is because it's working well that way. You can still negotiate the rate, which a lot of sellers don't do. I don't quite understand it. You definitely should. You should negotiate everything. Everything's negotiable when it comes to real estate. So work on your negotiation skills and find someone who has good negotiation skills because that could save you thousands of dollars. And they're going to be worth finding them. Especially when you're going to pay the same amount if you find a good negotiator or a bad negotiator.
The confusion it's causing is amazing.
So Barbara, you mentioned confusion, and I think a lot of people are confused, me included, about what this is going to do to the price of homes, right? Because you have the argument out there that if you're not paying for a fee here, an agent fee, then it makes more sense for the home seller. Maybe they could list their housing, their home a little bit more. Maybe they'll list it less because they're not having to deal with those fees. Then you also have the other side of the argument where this could actually attract more people into potentially buying a home and get them off the sidelines here if we do see a drop in fees. What's the ultimate impact on home prices?
I don't really believe either of those things are going to happen. It's a neutral. Think of yourself. If you're selling your home and if you, let's say you save 3% with a new ruling and say, I don't want to pay the buyer's broker the extra 3%, do you think you're going to pass that along to the buyer, which a lot of people are saying is the case? No, sellers are greedy. It's a one-time chance to get the most for your house, and you're not going to give that money away. So if you think prices are going to come down, definitely not the case. There is such a shortage of houses right now that prices have gone up despite everybody singing the blues 9% this year. 6% this year. How did that happen? It happened simply because of supply and demand. There's a lot of buyers and not enough houses to be available, and that's what rules the market.
Do you see prices continuing that move to the upside?
I think the prices are going to go through the roof, especially if interest rates come down another point by year end. I think everybody and their mother and their in-laws is going to come out looking for a new house, and the competition is going to be so fierce that house prices will have to go up.
So when should people be buying?
Right now. But that's always my mantra. Always the best time to buy. Not because I'm an ex-real estate broker by any means, but I'm sure I'm biased in my attitude.
The reason why we say it's always a good time to buy is because most of the time, well, always historically, housing prices have gone up in value, and also time in the market normally isn't the best. But truly, it's the best time to save because you want to put a 20% down when you get a house. You don't have to. You don't have to by any means. You can get a house with far less. You can potentially get a house right now with zero money down. You have to qualify for it, and it's only for first-time home buyers. But zero money down, they'll do 100% financing because they want that money off the interest. You know, they don't want you to really have a 20% down. But the reason why we say that is so you don't have to pay PMI, private mortgage insurance, basically insurance that you have to pay for in case of default. It's not for you, it's for the lender. So they don't get screwed if you don't pay.
Attitude toward it, but it always is true that the minute you go out in the marketplace when everybody else is out, you always pay more. Why would you wait for that?
Barbara, a real driver here when we talk about the pricing of homes, why they have risen so dramatically has been because of inventory, that lack of inventory.
Definitely.
There has been lots of questions about what it's going to take in order to unlock more inventory, what the ultimate impact is going to be on the housing market. Do you see the inventory picture getting fundamentally better anytime soon?
It's gotten a little bit better, maybe to the tune of 4% more inventory a month in the last 3 months. But no, there's such a...
She's not going to say this, but the best way to get more inventory would be making it illegal for there to be big business in renting out houses. That should not be allowed. They can own apartments or whatever they want like that, but single family residents, put an end to that, and there would be a giant influx of houses on the market. Also, yeah, no, that's basically it. Don't allow big players in on it. You should only be allowed to have maybe like 10 rentals as a single person, not as a giant company. And you also shouldn't be allowing these billionaires from other countries to be buying up houses that are just vacant all the time. That's not awesome. That's not awesome at all. It really tightens up the market. Most people won't tell you that because they like it how it is, and that would also crash some stocks.
A shortage of houses. I don't see how that's going to change. You know, the biggest problem, again, is interest rates. People who own homes have 3-4%, some of them even 2% mortgages. They don't want to give those up. That's why you have the bottleneck right now. That's why people aren't leaving their homes.
Is it still true that you can buy the house and then date the rate and you can...
That is also true. People have very low interest rates. Who's going to refinance when you have a 3% interest rate, or who's going to sell their house when they have a 3% interest rate and they have to get a 7? Especially since prices have gone up for the most part, a little bit down, but you know, they're still very high with the interest rates being high. You're not going to do that. You'd have to be pretty stupid to do that.
refinance? Is that true in kind of a higher for longer environment?
You can, but it makes people feel good more than it makes a difference.
Okay.
Barbara, your advice to maybe people who are sitting on the sidelines, they haven't listed their home. They're a little bit nervous given the fact that we've seen that dramatic run up in rates. What do you think is going to be the key factor to prompt them? Is it mortgage rates below 6%? Or do you think even some improvement from where we've plateaued just below 7% is enough to move some of that inventory?
If it goes to 6%, people are going to get so much more for their houses. Why would they even think of selling? If it hovers somewhere in the 7%, the market is going to be so active and they're going to get more for their houses too. So it's a hard argument to convince a seller, now's the time to sell. Life changes make it necessary for people to sell. But when it's optional, nobody's putting a house on the market.
I'm curious about your advice for first-time home buyers, obviously impacted by this settlement, but also a lot of people...
If it's optional, why would you sell? Right? Only if you're moving and you have to move, or a divorce. That's the only time you're really selling, or someone dies. Right now, those are the only people selling. It's a pretty big truth. Or people who are tired of being renters.
People have just said, I'm going to give up. I'm just going to rent forever. Should people still have the goal of owning a home someday?
Well, first I'll say that rents are cheaper anywhere in the United States than buying. So logic would dictate, sure, why not rent? It's cheaper. But everybody, almost everybody, has this idea that the American dream is still owning your own home. But for the first-time buyer, they're the hardest hit. They have to compete the hardest, have the least amount of cash to compete, so they're not making cash offers, and they're losing 4 to 5 houses that they're interested in. I would not want to be a first-time buyer. I don't know what's really going to give there, but it's not.
First time buyers get screwed the most because they're also the riskiest. Okay? If you're a first time buyer, you're going to have the highest interest rate. You're not going to get the best deal. It's just, there's so many barriers. And right now is the best time to be renting or living with your parents and saving as much money as you can if that is your dream to own a home. And then when the market does eventually free up and there's a lot more houses on the market, you will be able to own that home and you will be able to pay a lot of it off like that, or just be able to pay it off more rapidly and save so much money. So much money. Save. Now is the best time to save money. Literally, right now, this second. Put some money away in your savings. I'm going to do it too. Save right now.
Not going to be easy.
Any advice then for the first-time buyer? Barbara, help me.
I must sound depressing today, don't I? Yes, here's good advice. Do what I did for the last 4 houses. Now, people might say, well, I don't have her money. That's true. But I've done this my whole life. Run into a community, see which houses you like, and leave love notes on every door.
And that's worked.
Yeah, you're allowed to leave notes. I love your house. It reminds
Okay, don't do what she's saying right here. You could get the seller in a lot of trouble for fair housing. You could get in a lot of trouble for fair housing if you're writing love letters. Not only you, but mostly the seller could get sued for discrimination. So don't write love letters. That's actually kind of bad advice. Could get in some trouble.
me of my grandmother's house where I grew up in. The wallpaper, I noticed, or the garden, or whatever. Trim it up. Leave them a note. The last 4 houses I built were not on the market. That I bought were not on the market. I just picked out the house I liked best, and eventually the people called.
That's some great advice.
I love that
Might
advice.
take it, yeah.
I think sellers are going to kill us. They're going
You might be able to get around it if it's not on the market yet. So maybe it is okay advice, but be careful with those love letters because if it does go on the market and you're the one that wins, it could potentially be a fair housing thing. But she's clearly buying them off the market and she's probably offering a lot of cash. So I don't know. You're gonna have to get the people to like you a lot. They just like her because she's got money, whether she says it or not.
to get a lot of notes.
Hey, they're love notes. You can't be too unhappy. Barbara, thank you so much.
So that's it. Thank you for watching this, and try not to write love letters, especially if the house is on the market. Very, very bad. Maybe to try and convince someone to sell you an off-the-market house, but that's all for today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to share it with your friends, okay? I hope you all have a lovely day.